Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another community call. And today we have 3 items on the agenda. First, talk about the Power User Program, the feedback, how it has been working for you so far. Then we'll talk about the editor program that's coming up soon. And I know the details are, there are some details that we will reveal soon. They haven't been worked out in details, but I'm excited to hear what you guys think about how it's going to change everything. You're going to have a conversation on the UX in general, what things in interface you would like to see different, what things you like the most, the least, etc. And maybe we will talk about the potential new roles on ResearchHub, like what kind of other user types with extended privileges and obligations you would like to see in the future. All right. So first of all, let's start with the Power User Program. And the overwhelming majority of the people present are Power users. So what do you think?
I think it's great so far because it definitely motivated me to leave more comments. But like I said previously, because my joint hubs are not the most active hubs on Research Hub, and I think from my perception that the medicine and the psychology hubs are perhaps the hottest. So one thing that kind of struggle is that I can see there are 16,000 or over 10,000 at least papers uploaded on under the business hub, but not many comments, only 22 when I joined, around 20. So what I struggle is that I want to upload papers more that I could, participate in the discussion, but the rule is kind of every day you need to follow previous comments and ask question or discuss based on that comment, even though I'm quite happy to upload more papers and start a discussion myself. But perhaps that rule itself is a little bit tricky for the less active hubs, because they will need to constantly find other people's comments and then to try the way to fit in the discussion. That's my perception.
Do you think it could be helped with the discoverability of comments, or is it just the nature of,
I
because we
think
don't have many users?
it's very tricky at this early stage, because if you see something you're particularly interested and other people has, for example, the previous users uploaded this paper and then you found that, but there's no comment under there, you are of course quite happy to comment. But what if no one follows and it doesn't count towards the reward?
Right.
Which is the quite selfish to talk about, but for practical reasons, it does not motivate much at this stage, because you don't know if others will be interested to join your discussion, and then you won't get the rewards. Yes, so I need to constantly find more relevant topics that I can join, which is why I'm uploading more papers and
I
starting
see.
more comments. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a peculiar situation. And in our previous iteration of the Power User Program, we had more solitary tasks that you could do by yourself alone, right? You could upload papers, you could discuss, you can populate other people's papers with comments. But we had this problem where, to be fair, I think the burnout rate was pretty high, and the interaction itself on the Research Hub might not be as meaningful as people would want, right? Because you don't talk to other live people. And so we tried to do the second iteration where we did kind of force users in a more awkward activity, right? Where they have to seek out comments themselves and create discussions. But the hope is that at least throughout these discussions, you will, meet other users, pick up some friends, acquaintances on Research Hub, and you will feel, more intrinsically motivated to come back and spend time on it. Scott, to answer your question, better or worse, I am happy with the rates of the interactions between users recently. The last week has been, a pleasure to moderate and see. The problems themselves, perhaps it's better to ask the users themselves, right? I mean, obviously, like Xing said, the less populated hubs are problematic, right? To fulfill your daily tasks, because you have no one to interact with. for your discussion and question tasks? What do you all feel is the hardest part, I guess?
And also, when I'm trying to introduce to my close colleagues, that to get them on ResearchHub and tell them about this program, like I said last meeting, one thing that I need to explain is what is this research coin token, and they would perhaps ask me, so why should they comment? Because first of all, if it's for their intrinsic motivation to discuss this research with other colleagues, the thing is there aren't many discussions, and you need to be very enthusiastic and passionate to start the journey as early contributors, which is why you are giving them these rewards. But second, you need to explain why do they need these rewards and how can they use them as the fiat money that they are more familiar with, etc. And and it's quite turbulent. So that's another thing that I find it hard to introduce ResearchHub, this program, Power User Program, to my colleagues, is the economic reward. How to explain that? Yes.
Yeah, that issue is twofolded, right, Thomas? Right. First of all, the extent at which we can discuss the utility of the token is, sometimes under question for legality concerns, and secondly, we don't have a good, elegant message that we could share with other users, right? That would explain the research coin nature. We have been working on this one pager. Have you had any success showing it to other users?
Yes, I have convinced one of a few to at least try on ResearchHub, but the thing is, you need to really believe in the things that we are doing on the community to continue in the long run, I think, because as early contributors, sometimes you're kind of feeling in the echo chamber, because if you're in a less active hub, and the comments you are leaving on the site are not getting response. In the long run, I think that's not very realistic for the less passionate contributors to persist on this journey.
Yeah, you're right. We need to get a critical mass of users so they start talking with each other organically.
I think early contributors are really, really important if they stick around or not. If there are not enough early contributors, we are likely to, cool down, I think, on the discussions.
Lee, what do you think so far? What was your experience like?
So everything Xing was saying is, I think, echoes what I'm feeling about it. But with the latest Power User program, it seems like one way to open up opportunities to use things like hashtag comment or hashtag discuss is this very useful initial comment that comes with hashtag interesting, right? So now that this is sort of in place, you can look over these papers that are being uploaded and have that initial comment. And that's sort of like a cue, like, oh, okay, here's a place where I can start some discussion. And that I find is helpful. And I find myself commenting on a lot of those papers that have that initial comment there already for me to begin engaging with. And a lot of the times too, this that first hashtag interesting comment is very open-ended, almost like the person's take on what the article is, and that leaves it open for someone else to come in and provide a comment or discuss something, and then you start various threads. So that feels useful.
You're muted.
I think he's talking to someone else.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, exactly. So do you think, Lee, that the interesting comment, would you say it's a good indicator that this particular paper is more worthy of discussion than papers that have no comments currently?
It just provides like I can make initial comments on papers, but that first comment when the author uploads a paper, or excuse me, when the person uploads a paper and then makes that first hashtag interesting comment is almost inviting, right? Because it tells me that this person didn't just upload a paper to see like what happens. They uploaded a paper and then started almost a discussion being like, hey, here's what I take away from this, and then leaves the door open for anyone else to come in and offer their thoughts and continue the discussion. So it seems twofold in its usefulness. One, it invites people a little bit more to, just say what they think and begin a discussion, ask questions. But it also provides a sense of legitimacy. I don't know what to say with this uploaded paper, in the sense that this person uploaded this paper and is actually interested in potentially discussing it. And it just that alone too almost feels like the door is open for someone to come in and start a discussion.
Scott, do you mean the author of the paper itself?
No, I keep saying author, but I mean the person who uploaded the paper. That's my fault.
Well, it can be both, right? So we do have the tag that if the author uploads the paper, they are visible as the person who is one of the authors of the paper.
Sure.
So if they do post the interesting comment, that perhaps has double the power of a regular comment.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's one of the things that perhaps we want to highlight in the future, Thomas, if I recall some of the conversations correctly, where maybe we have the authors of the paper kind of open to the public for a Q&A type of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we have other things to discuss, so maybe we should move on. We can return to this if we have more time left. So the editor program. Any hopes, any fears of how it's going to go?
If I'm being very honest, actually, after reading the introduction, I'm very, very excited and I applied, as you can see. But to be honest, I am still not very clear about this role. So in my understanding, there are certain responsibilities, weekly responsibilities that we need to do, like being ambassador to introduce ResearchHub to the academia, colleagues or scholars, and also to moderate and also to engage the discussion within the hub and uploading more papers. But I think perhaps a more detailed responsibility explanation around those could be more helpful, because I think I'm just trying to picturing the role myself, and there are some details that I think it's missing, but I can't think of anything particular now, but maybe I will follow up on others' discussion once I remember those. Yeah, I was thinking about the other day and I couldn't think about the details. Perhaps others could contribute and I will follow up later.
Mm-hmm. So to answer Scott's question, the editor program is coming up soon. From what I'm hearing, maybe this week or next week. Thomas, do you have any more concrete dates?
Yeah, we are trying to get it like the first version out this week.
Okay. So Xing, basically it is vague on purpose, so to say, right? So there are responsibilities, but given that it's currently there is no mechanism in place to like manually supervise what the editors are going to do, right? So this is a less curated role, so to say, right? So it's more built on trust, and the responsibilities that you will have there are basically not set in stone. There are no milestones that you are supposed to fill. There are desired activities, right, that you should be engaging in, so that would lead to your hub to grow organically. And I think in some iterations, and we might actually go back to these iterations eventually if we figure out a good way to do it, so to incentivize editors to grow their hub by making the income somehow dependent on the number of active users, for example, in a hub, right? But there is no straightforward formula for that. at the moment. If you do have any suggestions, I'm open to hearing them. Absolutely. Scott, to answer your question, Patrick and me will go through the submissions, through the applications, probably through this week, and we will have a meeting with the people who qualify, and that's pretty much it.
Sorry, am I right in understanding that there will be a bottom line of all the responsibilities that's clearly listed on the Notion page, and above that is will be the editor's initiatives, or it depends on how actively they want to perform in these hubs? Because there will be no strict requirements around anything above that bottom line of, curating, moderating, etc.
That
For example, how many users you can bring at this stage is your discretion, and your pay will not change, which is not very incentivizing, to be honest. But yeah, that can change, and because this is only the first step of this program, so that makes sense. Like you said, maybe the growth of the hub could be something to measure. But it's definitely not on the user amount, I think, because, like I said, the subject matters are very different.
Yeah, right now, no. So that's an interesting. So the initial goal of this program is to see is how little supervision in an advanced adult community like ours we can get away, right? So like possibly we don't know what's going to happen. We have high hopes for the morale and the goals of the editors, but we don't know. Best case scenario, everyone is just doing best they can. There is no need for any interventions. Organic growth achieved naturally. Worst case scenario, right? We'll have to come up with more concrete goals or figure out incentives that are dependent, like you said, on the number of users you brought in and stuff like that. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Let's try to start with the hands-off type of management and see where it leads us.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, because we will have the right to distribute rewards to the active users in our hubs, for example. So it might be too detailed at this moment to ask, but do you have any rough idea of, like, will we receive monthly allowance, or, this allowance will be rolled up and then etc. So like I said, those details, I haven't figured out how to do those, and where that discretion of where that power could go, because once you have the coins, the governance tokens, there should be some boundaries around those power, I think.
Thomas, do you know any exact details on the quantities of the allowance, or how it's going to be implemented? Is it going to be deposited directly in the editor's account?
I don't know the details about these specific amounts, but from the meetings I've been in, I don't think we're building in like anything for the allowance. So I guess I would assume it's similar to like what we're doing with you, like giving you sort of just like in your account and trusting that you won't run away with it, basically.
Okay, well, like I said, the first stage of the editor program is extremely, build on trust.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the pay will be in RSC coins each month, $3,000 equivalent.
The equivalent, the equivalent. That's right.
Sorry to sound very skeptical at this moment, because the token value is quite fluctuant, right? It's
right now it's not very stable.
It's changing on a daily basis. So that's another thing why we need very passionate early contributors. Because it could be only half the next day, to be very honest.
So what would be the best way to handle it? Perhaps it would be better to send it over the course of the month, or so it's not that on a salary day the valuation drops in half right? The next day it goes up twice.
It's a good question on like it's actually more affected because I was asking an accountant this because it actually affects like income tax purposes, like how you declare if you're getting paid in crypto on your taxes, right? When you're collecting income. And from what I understand, the accountant told me that it's like it's kind of like when you're claiming your taxes, it's whatever the amount is, like that period. You're claiming them, and then that it has to be looked at as an investment too. So you can collect. Well, like I'm in Canada. I don't know how it is in the rest of the world. As in Canada, like with capital gains tax or capital losses, those have to be also like kept track of in case like that occurs, right, with the income. But for us in Canada, like let's say you get paid in RSC and then you sell that day, then that's easy. But let's say you held on to the RSC and you kept holding on to it past your tax return, then there's like capital gains and losses you have to consider. So it does get a little bit complicated. It might need, I don't. Again, I'm in Canada, so like whatever I was talking about, it could be completely different in the UK, USA, etc.
Right. So, obviously, as ResearchHub, we can't guarantee that you will, sell the same day, right? So you might wait a week, and it might double, might decrease in half.
Exactly. I would say just like it's like pick a day in the month, it gets paid or whatever that market rate is, and then you can.
That's your future power in the hub.
Yeah. And then just to confirm too, what blockchain is the RSC developed on? Is it like Ethereum?
Ethereum, yeah.
Okay.
ER20, I think.
ERC20.
Yeah. And also another question on this is, as I said, some of the hubs aren't very active, and some of them are quite, like a few are really, really active compared to others. So I don't know about the applications you guys have received on your end, but what if you don't get editors in some hubs? Or perhaps, for example, if I could easily manage 2 hubs related, like business and finance, for example.
We have talked about the opposite situation, and I think we are okay with having multiple editors in the same hub, but nothing we can do about people not applying to a particular hub. I mean, obviously, we can try to do some outreach and find for specific individuals to govern those hubs. As for the same person governing more than one hub, I am not entirely sure at the moment. And like obviously, would it come with a double pay? All these details that we would need to discuss.
Individual case, yes.
Yeah, Thomas, I don't know if you have any insight into that. I don't think we discussed that, perhaps.
Yeah, that's definitely a good question to think about, and yeah, I don't think we've discussed it in detail.
My guess, individual cases probably are possible, but also I can't can't promise anything.
Not publicly.
Not publicly, yes. All right. Any more questions, suggestions, discussions about the editor program, or should we move on to the UX? All right, let's move on. All right, so Joey, thankfully, shared with us some notes he took on his experience working with ResearchHub interface through the submission process and everything. Why don't we start with the same formula with what do you think are the strongest and weakest points so far in the UX ResearchHub?
I think that one is on Joey, right?
Do you want me to start?
No, Scott, what would be the strongest and weakest points of the ResearchHub UX?
I think the weakest for me is that on my homepage, again, I'm speaking from a less active hub perspective. So like most of the articles, I do not understand the titles. So I need to make efforts in searching the keywords that I'm particularly interested in. But like I said, I don't know if it's because I'm not very tech savvy, so I don't know when you built it, like I said, in the community, what about the keyword search function, that side? So I had to make quite a lot of effort in searching those because the keywords that I type in, didn't get lots of results coming out. Perhaps it's also because of, less popular topic. I think it's quite a lot of different subject areas popping up on my homepage. And from my experience, the thing I did when I entered was just to go search in my own hub, because I couldn't understand the titles of like medicine or biology, etc. So it's very chaotic, even though it's neatly designed, but like the papers popping up to me, like I think there's no algorithm recommendation I can see to me. For example, if you did like the algorithms behind, perhaps what I will see when I join will more based on like blockchain, finance, business, and perhaps sociology, those big hubs, or at least the hubs that I joined. But right now it's like all the things just immediately pop up.
Great. So I have a counter question here. So you mentioned the keyword. Do you think if we introduced a specific category of keyword that would help?
Maybe you guys could contribute from the tech behind that, because what I'm familiar with is when I submit my paper and get accepted at a journal, they will provide those keywords next to the abstract. And from my experience in searching, that's very, very helpful. And when I'm doing intensive literature review, as you guys know, some of the abstracts include a lot of jargons, and they are not the least easiest to read at a glance. So and the titles sometimes just it has a question mark, etc. It's not very information. So I would perhaps first thing is to look at the keywords and to narrow down my search, and then perhaps skip on the abstract bit to see if this is the literature that I want to collect, or if I want to make some effort to read, continue to read.
Okay, so the keywords would help, but you also said that the titles and the abstract sometimes are inaccessible. Would it be...
Sorry, not inaccessible. I mean, academics write their abstracts in a very complex way. It's not your problem.
Semantically inaccessible. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, so would it be better if we would somehow cultivate the culture where people editorialize or digest the content, like the more editorialized titles, right? So like, if one of the users is expert in the field, they can come up with a more accessible title, and maybe with we had the key takeaways before. So maybe if someone could make key takeaways that are accessible to the general public out of the inaccessible abstract, would that help?
Yeah, I can see when I upload paper, you recommend that we rewrite the abstract or the key points in a way that everyone could understand. But to be honest, that's quite a lot of effort for each paper that we upload. So it definitely needs some motivation behind that. Yeah, I definitely think that's a very good point, but perhaps not like a ritual kind of thing. When you upload the paper, it's not very realistic for the uploaders to rewrite every paper they upload. Perhaps something we could consider is like a program thing. For example, I don't know if you guys know about the media called The Conversation. It's quite popular in UK academia and also some other countries, but from my perspective, it's mostly UK or like Australia and Canada scholars. So their mission is basically to invite academia to write media articles, but that is endorsed by the academia experts. So one format of the conversation article is to rewrite a research finding from papers or one paper in 600 words that everyone could read. So maybe that could be like a program thing to encourage and then get the rewards. Or, the editor could invite someone who's interested in sharing their research or certain research findings in that short couple of 100 words format. I think your point on the key takeaways beneath each paper is also very interesting. Yeah, but that definitely requires some effort.
I mean, that might actually be a transition into our last item of the agenda. If you want to, about different roles on ResearchHub, we might have a specific person whose only goal would be to go around and revise the titles into more accessible editorialized titles and add key takeaways. If we decided that's important, right?
Perhaps something like a curator to have a section weekly or monthly, like digest kind of thing, to write a few articles on different topic areas, and to create those. Perhaps this is an interesting reading, like 5 reasons why you shouldn't, blah blah, that kind of thing. But it's based on solid research. It's not just media articles. Yeah.
Right. No, those would need to be trained people. Yes.
If I can say, I can touch on some of your points. So, yeah, you're right. Right now, we don't have like an algorithmic feed that like recommends you stuff based on what you've been viewing. The closest thing to that is sort of like the My Hubs section on the homepage. If you know what that is, it's on like the sidebar.
Yeah.
That basically just like filters down papers to only the ones that are part of the hubs that you've joined so far.
Okay.
And we sort it by default by trending, which is sort of like an algorithm that kind of like takes into account how recent ago the paper was uploaded and the activity on the paper. So like upvotes and comments on it play into that, and those are ranked, and then that's the order that we presented to you, pretty much.
Thomas, do you know if it's going to be a problem at all to extract the keywords from when the paper is exported into ResearchHub?
Yeah, so I had a question about that. Like when you say keywords, what keywords, if you can give like a few examples, are you like trying to search for?
Yes, I gave one paper's example in the hub. Let me see. For example, this one. This one basically talks about the robotization and the gender pay gap in Europe. So the keywords will be industrial robots, and that's the first one, and gender pay gap, the second one. Third one will be Europe, and the fourth one will be automation. Yeah. So perhaps this isn't a very good example because the topic is quite succinct, and it tells you basically what they are talking about. But sometimes the title is just irrelevant. It's like a question mark, etc. And then you need to read the whole abstract to get what they are talking about. In that case, a quick glance at the keyword section could be very helpful for you to just quickly do your literature review, or to find the papers that you want to comment. Stranger thing, not necessary. Okay. Scott, why do you think that is? It's not very helpful, you think?
We've considered something similar. It's kind of like tags.
Yeah, tags.
You're familiar with like Reddit, maybe they have like tags for different.
Yes.
Within the subreddit. Yeah, each post can be tagged with a couple of different things.
Tags.
They're basically tags, yeah, Thomas. So if we collaborate with OSF, for example, and when you submit the pre-registration or preprint through OSF, it asks you to enter the keyword. So for example, in psychology, because there are so many different types of psychological research, if you see a tag that's its vision and attention, you already know that people are going to study something about how people stare at stuff and track stuff with their eyes.
Yeah.
And not like the clinical psychology, right? So that narrows things down really fast.
Right.
Yeah, perhaps we could have like an optional section where the uploader can put in 5 tags or 4 tags or don't. It's up to them.
Yeah.
And the visitors of that paper page could quickly look at what they are talking about. Maybe,
yeah. We did think about tags a lot, and I think like we were really on the fence, like deciding to add them or not. I think we just ended up not doing it because there were some other things that were higher priority, and we felt it might like add a bit too much complexity to the UI. Yeah, it's like, but yeah, I definitely feel that like we'll probably need to have like some additional way to sort and filter information from within a hub, because right now that's, once you're in a hub, that's as far as the filtering kind of goes right now.
Yeah, and the bright side though, with the creation of the editor program, because we probably going to have so many users that are within the same field, right? Even now I'm looking at the applications, there are a lot of psychologists, but they're all different, right? So we might have the opportunity to split hubs, right, into smaller ones, into like health psychology, social psychology, cognitive psychology, etc. And Thomas, you said that eventually, I don't think you said, but someone said that eventually the plan is to have hubs nested within each other, right? So like all the fields within psychology would be sub-hubs within psychology, etc.
Yeah, that was another sort of option, like considered alongside tags. Like maybe instead of tags, we just do nesting, or instead of nesting, we do tags. So yeah, all is similar in the same vein of ideas. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any more thoughts on the UX or new roles that would be handy to have on ResearchHub? The curate. I like the idea of curator.
Thank you. I think. Sorry. I think it's a thing now because I follow DAOs quite a lot, and curators in a DAO are quite important, and especially in Web3 because people joining Web3 needs to quickly learn a lot of things, and for a DAO, if there will be a curator who can communicate the things that newcomers do not get or could be more interested in, and that could be the bridge to invite more users to the community.
That does overlap a little bit with the editor, right? So perhaps in ideal world, I don't know if it's an ideal world, but perhaps eventually more full-time editors could fulfill the curator role, maybe, or separate. What do you think?
Yes, I think so. I think it could be part of the editorial role, and it could also be, at first like a programmer thing, like I said, and then you can pick up the best ones, or we do a vote or something, and then they get a lot research coins, like a competition thing, or because I follow something like the Layer 3 on Twitter, so they are basically collaborating with different DAOs and hosting events to invite more users to use those DAOs. For example, I think they invited, was it Super Rare or something? And then if you write an article about our DAO or about DeFi, and then you could get the chance to win those tokens from us, something like that, or like or we can have people who's more experienced and who has more background knowledge in those subjects.
Lee, you were saying?
I was just going to make a quick comment on what was written on the UX Google Doc about uploading a paper. I had also uploaded some papers for the first time recently. And believe it or not, I could not find the large blue button that said new post with the plus sign. I was looking everywhere on the left-hand side, and then I went to help and I clicked through that, and it actually took me a little bit of time. And I imagine, there's going to be people who can't spot the obvious thing. I was wondering if it would be possible, like in the help tab, just to have like a very succinct FAQ for the most obvious topics. because I imagine people will click there first. And if, I went there and it said, actually, there's a big blue button on the top right-hand side of the screen, I would be like, oh, of course, how did I miss that? Just to sort of streamline accessibility, because, and especially in terms of new users who are coming in and want to get involved, you don't want to discourage them or make them feel like, it's not really worth it, I'll go do something else. If they just, click one more link and see like, oh, okay, this is how I do this, or this is how I make a comment or something like that. Some quick redundancy to explain even the most obvious topics. Because I don't think anything is not obvious. The UX is great. But for weirdos like me who miss, giant obvious things on how to do something for the first time, that might be helpful just if they happen to click on the help tab for that explanation.
No, I agree with you. We had instances in the past, I think the Eleanor, right? Patrick said in the past, and a few other users. Yeah, it's not super obvious. Perhaps it wasn't Eleanor. It was someone. Yeah, it's not super obvious. Not sure. Thomas, what do you think? Thomas, are there any talks about changing the UX of the new post?
Yeah, a lot actually.
Oh, really? Do you mind giving us a few of the snippets?
Sure. We were just like going through. We hired like a really expensive designer like pretty recently.
Okay.
Like they started last week, so she's sort of redesigning a bunch of pages right now.
Oh,
and
okay.
Yeah, just to make sure the UX is like super intuitive and like obvious. So I think like she like doesn't like the new post thing. She wants to just call it like submit paper or something,
Mm-hmm.
and like have the other post types created somewhere like somewhere else in the UI, something like that.
Makes
So
sense.
yeah, we are definitely working on the UX right now.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So I have a question. So hub moderator. So the moderator is actually not moderator, right? Because there will be moderators besides editors. That's a little bit of a problem. So how about we brainstorm maybe a different title for the editor program? It's possible that we are actually pretty set on the title, but I'm not sure. We might change.
I can give some context. I think like we went with it because like our CEO just like really likes that term. I guess he said like a bunch. Like he wants to call the moderators like rename it to editors. So
all right. So it's a purposeful choice. I don't think we have degrees of freedom in that part.
I mean, I think it's not like we can't change it if the community like all really feels strongly about it. I think like he would be open to changing it. But
yeah, it is a lauded term for sure, and it overlaps with the editors in the journals that have a different set of responsibilities. Let's see if
his concern, I think, was just to like, I think he called it like sprawl. It's like a bunch of ideas and concepts that are kind of close but not exactly the same, and he wanted to unify it so there were like less concepts to have to worry about.
Okay, that makes sense.
Scott brings up a good point that editor does sound appealing to people.
Okay, so it's more desired as a position. Better to put it on your CV.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think that was part of it as well, for sure.
Okay. I do have, if we are out of topics for discussion, unless anyone wants to bring up any of the things we have discussed, I do have kind of an idea, but I don't know how realistic it would be. What do you all think about a quick collaboration between the editor program and the power user program in form of the editors supervising the power users in their hub? Good idea, bad idea?
Why not?
Hmm?
Why not? I don't see why we can't do that. Sorry.
Well, that would be
It's-
adding to the
Yeah,
responsibility.
it's basically just taking a moderating role to the, from you to the editors. And yeah.
So Scott, that would entail something like, so we would come up with, let's say a set of tasks would change. The editor's job would be to reach out to all the power users they supervise. They would, explain the new set of rules. They would discuss the best strategy, what to post, and they would oversee basically the allowance feature would be part of it, right? Because they would award the current power user actions, perhaps.
I thought that was already, required from the editors to do that, like a moderator, and to give the rewards. So
Okay.
I don't think it's a problem. It's very reasonable. Yeah.
Okay, so you think, Scott, that the editors wouldn't want to have more responsibilities like that? Okay, but what about they're supposed to, well, as it's written, they're supposed to oversee the community anyway, right? And spark the conversations. They must hate that as well, right? Hopefully not.
My understanding was that that should be part of your job responsibility, and adding the power user program is just a different format in the moderation, because you are gonna give rewards to comments anyway. Is that right to understand?
It's true. Yeah, it's true. I mean, it does look like it's very aligned in that sense.
If there is any concern about rapid expansion at any point, it seems like this would be a safe bet, because I don't know who is moderating the power users or giving them the rewards. Is it just you, Anton, or are there several other people?
Yeah, right now it's me, and that's why I'm asking, because the power user program is growing and it's becoming, harder and harder for me to keep track of all the users. So it would be like if we could delegate all of the users across multiple editors. I don't think any one editor would have more than 5 power users, or perhaps even less. Well,
yeah. What about a team of moderators under you, Anton?
well,
that would
now
budget.
So think about it this way, right, Scott? We could create a dedicated new team, right? So specifically for that task, or we could incorporate it into the responsibilities of the program for people who already do something similar to it. Do we need a dedicated team of moderators? Because if we decide against it, then yes, that would be the solution.
4 to 5 people under a moderator who's 4 to 5 power users under a moderator doesn't seem like a lot, and it doesn't seem like a lot of work. I think the only concern would be how clean the UX is, and if there's going to be notifications that one of your power users made a post or made a comment or something like that, and you can click it and see what they did to assess and reward efficiently. That would be the only concern.
Yeah, that currently is an area for improvement.
How about this? We delegate it to the editors for now, and if the power user program grows too big to fit in a full-time role, then we can employ someone to just focus on the moderation. Does that sound good? Because at the moment, I don't think, because I don't know about the real data, perhaps not many power users. So, splitting into different hubs gives perhaps one editor 2 or 3 users. And I think that's fine. I'm not speaking for others, but I think that's fine at this moment. And if let's just reach a target. If it reach a target, over, like Lee said, 45, and then or even lower than that, then we just hire someone to do this full time.
Okay, so we would need to figure out the number of power users that would be comfortable for editors to keep track of, given that the power users can fluctuate, right? So some people can post something once a week, other people post pings twice a day. So hard to predict the amount of workload. All right. Any concluding remarks? Right. Well, then, thank you all for coming. Then that was a productive community call. And I will see you all next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
See you later.
See you, everyone.
Everyone.